What's up, everybody? Josh from the lab here. And today, since I'm having technical difficulties with my live streaming, and I want to apologize for that. It really is unfortunate, and I'm sorry. If you've been frustrated by it, believe me, I'm as equally frustrated, if not more. So um, hang with me. I'll try and get it fixed as fast as possible. However, I didn't want that to stop me from touching on a subject that I think that for some reason I feel compelled to talk about it because I feel that the subject matter is completely serious on a level that is just heart wrenching, and that is the I don't know what the right word is, but I guess the revelations that have been coming out about Sebastian from his past. And I just, first of all, I just want to say that, it's just such a gut wrenching story. I think that the reason that this stuff is starting to come out slowly, kind of drip by drip from Seth in particular, is because two reasons. One of them being frustration, and the second being desperation. Now, the first, when I say desperation or frustration, is I'm under the assumption that he believes that they are not either being completely honest. Now, he hasn't said that, or that they aren't participating in help trying to find Sebastian to what a normal parent or step parent or anybody that would even legitimately care about the child. I don't think that he feels that they have lived up to what needs to be done, and that he's kind of on an island on his own. And right or wrong, good or bad, if you agree or not, that's how I interpret him feeling at this point. So I am going to play this and react a little bit from it. And the credit goes to Justin on TikTok for this interview. And let's just go ahead and listen.
Katie let Katie and Chris let a child into their house that was 5 years older than my son. My son was 7 or 8 at the time, and this kid was 13. And she has a habit of not checking on her kid. I would never let some kid that's 5 years older than my son play with my son anyways.
I mean, he's got a fantastic point there. Typically kids, especially when they're that young, 13-year-olds play with, 13, 14-year-olds, and not for any other reason. It's just that their maturity levels are just much, much different. And it's healthier. It's not like a brother or a sister. It's just when you have a child playing with another kid, you'd want them to be reasonably in the same age range. And the difference between a 7-year-old and a 13-year-old is drastic.
It's like, why do you want to play with my son? There's a 5 year difference. That's a pretty big difference. You're 13, and my son, you're a teenager. My son is not a teenager. He's still playing with Hot Wheels and Legos, and you know he's building things. He's playing video games, and you're a teenager. You go out and you have your own, you know, age appropriate group that you play with, and they were letting this kid play with my son, and they weren't checking on him, and then this kid took my son's innocence and he molested him. And there was nothing I could do in California because the kid was 13.
Now, I don't know what the laws are for something like that. I understand that you're dealing with two minors, and it's technically it's complicated when it comes to the law, but really, from a human aspect, a 13-year-old child absolutely knows better. And that's just not, you know, I'm not railing against California laws, and I'm sure some people will. I'm just saying in general, it's a no-brainer that it should be punishable. No question about it. In my opinion, it should be.
But they let that happen. And they didn't bother to try to even get my son help until last year. Here, my son is just turned 15 in December. It means he's been dealing with an emotional, stressful, traumatic incident for the last 7 years. And I've been trying to help him. I've been trying to get him help. Going to talk to his doctor and telling them what happened. And for the doctor to tell me, she was like, I knew none of this stuff.
So if what Seth is saying is true, and I have no reason to doubt that he is being truthful, I don't know exactly what he would gain by lying about this, and that it would be something inevitably that would come out. However, so I do believe what he's saying. If Chris and Katie did not get Sebastian help for what had happened to him, to me, criminal in and of itself, neglectful, spiteful, hateful. I don't know. There's a lot of fulls, and none of them are good. There's zero excuse for not getting a child help that has been put in harm's way because of inattentive parents. Now, I don't know if that's the case, but it seems like having such access to a child is just something that a parent really can control. Once again, this is frustration. This is desperation. He's upset. He's very, very upset. And I think that, this is kind of a tipping point.
And I'm like, really? Because he's supposed to be seeing a therapist for this. And she's like, well, he's not seeing the right type of therapist for this type of trauma. I care about my son. And actions speak so much louder than words. And there's just no justification for the actions that I have seen from them.
Actions, inactions, there is zero communication going on between the two. And that's troubling. And it's just troubling that there's no communication going on.
They're not parents. They're not parents at all. And I want to know what happened to my son.
Nightmare.
My son around his daughter. Because Chris has turned around into my mother told my mom, your grandson's a pedophile. No, he's not. He's a victim that hasn't got the help that he deserves and that he needs so that he can get over the traumatic incident that has happened to him. That should have never happened underneath their watch to begin with. That's why Chris doesn't want my son around his daughter. Because he's scared that my son is going to do the same thing that was done to him under his watch.
So that sounds like that's something that's been discussed before between the two households. However, what Chris is failing to realize is that, and I don't know anything about Sebastian when it comes to anything like that. I understand what Chris is saying. His fear is, however, that's something that could have been not only addressed, but have been being worked on. I mean, Sebastian has enough problems as it is, dealing just every day with, the handicaps that he does have. And then to throw that kind of confusion and trauma onto a child that is still mentally and physically developing is something that, you know, could be put any child in a catatonic state.
Hey, Chris Proudfoot, if you're listening to this, you can't hold that over my head. I told you. You're going to piss me the fuck off, and I don't give a fuck who knows. It's your fault. It's your and your wife's fault.
He's been more gracious than most would. And I think that his grace and patience are kind of running out when it comes to the people that should be caring the most. And I'm not accusing Chris and Katie Proudfoot of doing anything, but the situation just doesn't look good. It doesn't seem, you know, one of the things that Seth had said was that Chris was working on Katie to let Sebastian come live full time with him. And apparently they got there. Somehow they reached this agreement, but it wasn't some amicable decision. It didn't sound like. It sounded like Chris was like, yeah, we can, you know, I don't think Chris did it out of the goodness of his heart for Sebastian and his father. And it didn't sound like Katie wanted Seth to win, since they really didn't have any communication whatsoever. Katie didn't even call Seth when he went missing. That would have been one of my first phone calls. I understand calling I understand calling Chris, her husband. How do you not turn around and desperately try to get a hold of Seth? I don't understand that. It makes no sense to me. I don't understand how you don't go out of your way and call his other parent that he certainly could have had contact with or could be on his way to. Where was the desperation? Where was the pleas? Where was the, you know, just, I just I don't get that. You know, and if that makes me speculative or blaming the parents for something, then so be it. But I'll tell you that I do not understand, and I will never understand, why it was handled that way from the beginning. Katie owed Seth the dignity and the right and respect to call and address what was going on with Sebastian. Yet Chris, for some reason, being their intermediary, I don't know why, maybe, you know, bad blood, but, you know, you think that kind of stuff gets pushed to the side here. It didn't. It's selfish. It's immature at best. I don't care how bad your relationship is. You guys don't have restraining orders against each other. You don't have no contact orders against each other. Katie should have called Seth. That's just, instead of hiding behind Christopher Proudfoot. And that's how I feel about it. I really do. I think that it's a terrible, terrible thing that is happening, and you're seeing the sort of collapse of the two households that, you know, were somewhat trying to hold it together when it came to not only not airing dirty laundry, but, you know, the frustrations are boiling over, especially from Seth. You don't see it much from Chris and Katie, but, you know, Sebastian went missing under their watch, whether Chris was there or not. I don't know if Chris was. He says he wasn't there. We'll give him the benefit of the doubt. He should have called him. And that's a red flag to me. Thank you for listening. I'm your host, Joshua Diaz. Please like, share, and subscribe if you enjoyed the video.